All right, let's talk about the interpersonal communication model for just a minute. This normally begins with a person, and that person has a message that they want to send to somebody else. So now we'll soon have two people involved. But first, before we go there, this person's creating a message. And when they do, they're creating it using their own personal goals and values and belief systems. They then want to send this message and the meaning of it, and they want that person to understand this message on the other side via two channels, usually verbal and nonverbal communication. In this case, you can see we've sort of minimized the communication channels because we've cut out the nonverbal because we're using a telephone. So it's hard to read a nonverbal signal when you can't see it. You can hear some tone inflections, etc., but you don't see a lot of what you do if we were doing this on a video conference where you could see my video, for example. You wouldn't have eye contact and you wouldn't be able to see any kind of gestures they have. So she's already cut out a large portion of the potential message meaning by cutting out the nonverbal communication. But in this case, she didn't have any choice. He lives in Saudi Arabia. You can't just fly over there and sit down across the table and have a 30-minute conversation. So in this case, she chose the telephone. So that's what's going on here. And you have cut out some of that communication. And then once he receives that message, what you'll see here is when he gets the message, he interprets it using his values and belief system. The way we have this model set up is part of another webinar I do, but it's focusing on the idea that this person is in Saudi Arabia. She's an American woman. There are a lot of barriers in the way besides not having nonverbal communication. There are his value systems and beliefs in women, her values systems and beliefs in women, a lot of potential for conflict that can cloud the meaning of that message. So if this is all we did, she really has no idea of whether or not he heard the message effectively and believed and understood the meaning as she intended it. So consequently, she has to pay attention. She has to be an active listener. And because when he responds, he's going to respond the same way. You have the same verbal communication coming back from him using the same network, the telephone. But again, you've cut out the nonverbal communication. Now, what we know about the nonverbal communication is when you do research and ask people what they associate with the meaning, 70% of that communication is normally associated with the nonverbal cues. So she's already minimized how effective she can be. So this verbal feedback is very important because it's from the verbal feedback that she's going to receive the cues as to whether or not he understands it. So it begins a cycle. What happens here, then she, having heard the feedback from him, creates another message to further clarify depending on how much she believes he understood or didn't understand. And she sends another signal, and this loop continues on as they develop the meaning together of that message so it's very clear what they need to have happen. So this is the basic communication model that goes on every day with two people. And you can see there's a lot more complexity in this than most people are aware of.